Have a good meeting.
Thank you. Hello to all. I'm Barry Malford, the chairman of the policy committee, and we're about to start our November policy committee meeting. I'm going to call the meeting to order. All right, I'm calling the meeting to order at 3:05. I'm sorry we were a little late for anybody that's watching, and we are thankful for your willingness to want to watch and see what we are doing here today. The second item on the agenda is the statement of announcement, which I'm going to ask Susan Beck to read for us, please.
A meeting notice announcing the date, time, and place of the November 10th, 2020 Policy Committee meeting was distributed November 6th, 2020 to appropriate media and other groups or individuals who have requested notification. The announcement and agenda were posted at the Department of Disabilities and Special Needs Central Administrative Office and on the website. The public has been notified that accommodations such as interpreters, mobility assistance, or other assistance will be provided to individuals with disabilities and special needs if requested in advance.
Thank you, ma'am. The next item on the agenda is an invocation that I'll do very quickly. If you would allow me. Dear Lord, thank you for allowing us to be here and to help those with disabilities, help all those that are struggling not only with physical but emotional disabilities. We are thankful to be able to do a small part in helping them with what we can do through the Commission on Disabilities and Special Needs. We would ask that you would be with each of us through the election time and the uncertainty with that, and that we ask that your will would be done in that regard. We ask your will be done throughout the day, and keep us safe throughout the day, and help us to travel safely wherever we are going, and be with us through this meeting. In Jesus' name we pray, amen. Okay, next item on the agenda is the adoption of the agenda. Is there any edits to the agenda that anybody knows of? I certainly don't know of any.
I see none. Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the agenda as written. This is Commissioner Rawlinson.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there a second? Second. Oh, David's got it. Okay. Okay, David, thank you, sir. Motion is made and seconded. Hearing no further discussion. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. The next item on the agenda is the healthcare consent prevention act.
Mr. Melfors, I think.
Well, wait a minute. I'm sorry, I missed something. I knew I was missing something.
Yep.
Wait a minute. I wanted to say about my subcommittee first. The first item on the agenda, I knew I was missing something because I couldn't see it. Now I see it. First item on the agenda is that I'm not going to spend much time on this except to say a couple little things because we're going to have a meeting probably the end of this month on it. But a majority of the commission has decided they would like to start a subcommittee within our policy committee called a communications committee, which is primarily to get us some new nameplates and name tags, and to do some things with the website to make us a little more I don't want to say responsive, but a little more
Professional, Mr. Chairman. Professional.
Professional is my way to put it. A little more professional way of doing certain things, and we would ask that that we're going to have, we haven't even set the date for the first meeting yet, but we're going to ask that any commissioner that wants to serve on it can serve on it. And I'll be asking which ones want to. I know that myself will be the chairman of it, and Robin will be one of the members of it. Robin Blackwood, one of our commissioners. And as I say, any other commissioner that would like to be on it, we'd be happy to have our director of communications to be on it as well, if she would like to be. And then we would have, I'm sorry, I forget her name right this second. Mary, your assistant, I'm sorry. Christine needs to be on it, because at the first meeting, we need to get from her the choices we have for things like name tags and nameplates and things of that nature. So I'll talk to her more in person, I mean, over the phone about what we exactly need, but we certainly want her to attend the meeting to give us the options that we have, and I'll talk to her about what we need to bring to that first meeting. We only plan to have maybe 1 to 2 meetings at the most. It'd be and it'll have one sheet that'll be a policy that'll list all the things that we want to, all the little things that we want to do. It's just to make things more, what we think will be more professional and better in general, but it's nothing that will be affecting anybody with disabilities in any way, except to make us look differently.
Mr. Chairman, if I can, it isn't the purpose of this basically to get everything very uniform, so that when we bring in new commissioners, we make sure they are given everything when they come, and that sort of, they're told everything up front. Isn't that correct?
That's right. That's the second meeting. There's going to be 2 meetings, and and the second one's going to be about that. Yeah, about what information each committee, each new commissioner gets, and what it says on that, what they can receive, like business cards and or license plate and whatever else. It's just all that sort of thing, and also their first email. We want to look at it and see what it says, and also to whenever a commissioner leaves our commission, we want to be able to approve the plaque they receive, and that sort of thing. That's really the 2 parts of the committee. One is the first part I just talked about the professionalism, and the second part is about how what new commissioners will receive and won't receive and all that. Is there any other questions about that? I can talk much more about it whenever we have our first meeting, and hopefully we're going to try to have it at the end of October, the last Monday in October, but that'll depend on everybody, it'll depend on everybody's ability to attend that would like to. Okay, moving on. I assume we need we'll also approve this at the commission meeting too. I assume we'll need to, so I'm just going to go ahead and ask them to put that on the agenda to be approved at the commission meeting. I'm assuming it's necessary since it's a subcommittee, but it may or may not be necessary. I'm not honestly sure, but I think it's probably best that we do. So does anybody on the committee have an objection to this committee, or anybody that's listening to me right now in the office have an objection to the committee?
Barry, let me ask you a question if I could. David here. Do we really need a committee? Can't we just, anybody who has ideas, text them over to you and you just put it on the agenda and bring it up? Do we need a subcommittee for this? I'd rather there just be a good point man, namely you, to receive any recommendations, and you write stuff down and just pop it on the agenda as an item, because the subcommittee is going to have to come back to a committee, to the policy committee, and That just seems like a lot of swimming to get a few items in front of the policy committee to look at. Just brainstorm it,
Can we not?
Clearly, you've got some things on your mind right now. Just put them down, put them on the agenda, and let's just do it.
Well,
I can
Robin
get you
wants
a catalog, Barry. We can start there. Would that not help to start looking through catalogs for this stuff?
well, yeah, Robin wants to be on the committee, or on the, I messed up here something. Robin wants to be on the committee, and so she can come to that particular policy committee meeting, I guess. We can do it through the policy committee, I guess. And we can just have it, we can just do it through the policy committee, I guess, and then I could just, well, I can actually just have everything together and then do it through the policy committee, I guess, yeah. It actually
It's got to come to the policy committee. If it's
Second.
a subcommittee, it's got to come to the policy committee. So it's just a lot of running around with this is small ticket items in a sense. Just have a list of things that you're interested in, put it on as an item for the policy committee to look at. And anybody who's got an idea, just have them roll it up in one item on the agenda for a policy committee meeting. We don't have to have I don't mean to be flippant, but it's almost like, what do we need a subcommittee to name a subcommittee this is enough so that one guy, and I'm thinking Barry Malthus, can be point man to just take it. Barry, just put it on the agenda.
Okay, we'll just put it on the next, well, I'll have everything together and we'll put it on the next, on the January policy committee meeting. And we'll say
Whatever you're thinking about. I mean, name tags and all that stuff and license plates and just whatever else you want, put them on the agenda. And if it's necessary for us to vote on them, we might also check with staff just to see if a request from the policy committee would be sufficient. And you could just tell the full commission, hey, we're going to be ordering or asking for these things. If you have any ideas, let us know. We don't think it's necessary to go on the full agenda of the commission, because if the policy committee takes it up, then it's got to go to the commission and the full commission. And I think maybe this could just be handled with simple requests. Maybe, Barry, you being the point man and just requesting this of staff, and let's just see if we can't get it just taken care of without running through full policy committee. And then if somebody gives us a hard time on this kind of simple request, okay, then we, the policy committee and the full commission as a item of consideration, name tags.
I'll just get the people together that are interested in and I'll put it on a sheet of paper and we'll send it to the staff then, and we'll put it on the policy committee if necessary. But it just needs to be, I do think it needs to be in writing so that we get it all straight, all at one time. Anyway, moving on, we won't make a committee then. We'll just either do it through the policy committee or I'll just do a request as the chairman of the policy committee.
We're getting a little bit of like a twinkling paper feedback. If there we go, that was much better. Commissioner Malthus, I was just going to say, I'd be glad to help schedule a time for you to talk with Kimberly McLeod, our new legislative liaison / PR communications director. She has lots of hats. And then also with Christy Lingard to coordinate some of the things so we can, start planning some of the choices that you'd like to make.
Okay, just we'll just get with. I'll get with. We just need somebody to get with Christy so we can figure out what options we have, because I think we have to buy through state-approved vendors. So anyway, okay, moving on to the next item. we'll just do it through the policy committee if necessary, and we'll go from there. But we will try to meet, or those that are interested, I'll get with them on the situation and have them email me by a certain date, and we'll go from there. The next item on the agenda is is under section 1, is the healthcare consent presentation that we have from Ms. Holloway.
So I think everyone should have a copy of we were not able to put the PowerPoint on the screen so it could be visual. So everyone's been provided copies of the PowerPoint presentation. Because that is the case, I'm apologizing in advance. I'm going to read from the PowerPoint, which I hate to do, but I understand that some people are not stationary and can't see the PowerPoint themselves. So in the process of drafting the policy regarding making healthcare decisions, it's important to understand the Adult Healthcare Consent Act and how it plays a role. So that's the purpose of this brief presentation. So the Adult Healthcare Consent Act is covered under Title 44, Chapter 66 of the South Carolina Code of Laws. The Adult Healthcare Consent Act provides a process for making healthcare decisions for a patient who is unable to consent for themselves. Unable to consent has been defined by the statute to mean the patient is unable to appreciate the nature and implications of their conditions and proposed health care, to make a reasoned decision concerning the proposed health care, or to communicate that decision in an ambiguous manner. If the patient is unable to consent, the statute requires that it must be certified by 2 licensed physicians. Each physician is then required to examine the patient. There are exceptions to the Adult Healthcare Consent Act where you don't have to get the 2 physician certification, and that's in the event of an emergency. One healthcare professional can then certify in writing that due to the emergency, it would be detrimental to the patient's health to wait on 2 doctors to certify. Who consents if the patient is unable to consent? So Section 44-66-30 of the Adult Healthcare Consent Act provides a list of priorities of who can consent when the patient is unable to consent. Note that this list does not come into play unless the patient has been determined by the 2 licensed physician certified physicians. Only exception is in an emergency as defined by law. The list of priorities which you should have there before you is as follows. The first, I'm not going to read each priority. There are 10 individuals or parties that have been listed in a priority. The relevant portions to DDSN, we have been given priority as number 9. Number 9 states that a person given authority by another statute may consent on behalf of an individual who's unable to consent themselves. Number 9, DSN would be the authorized designee, as we do have statutory authority to make healthcare decisions for people who have been determined by DSN to have an intellectual disability or a related disability. The statutory authority that permits DDSN to make some healthcare decisions for adults is found at South Carolina Code annotated section 44-26-50, which is entitled Rights of Clients with Intellectual Disabilities. It's important to note that DDSN only has been provided statutory authority for individuals with intellectual disabilities, that we do not have the statutory authority to consent on behalf of healthcare decisions for individuals who fall up under the HASCI.
Head and spinal cord injury and similar disability as well. Yeah, it's a similar disability. Yeah.
So the statutory authority states that if the client is found incompetent, and that client has to be someone with an intellectual disability, to consent or to refuse major medical treatment, decisions concerning his or her health care must be made pursuant to the Adult Healthcare Consent Act. An authorized designee of the department, with the department being DDSN, may make a healthcare decision pursuant to section 44-66-30 of the Adult Health Care Consent Act. The person making the decision must be informed of the need for major medical treatment, alternative treatments, and the nature and implications of the proposed health care, and shall consult the intended physician before making decisions. When feasible, the person making the decision shall observe or consult with the client found to be incompetent. How does the Adult Health Care Consent Act apply to DDSN, DSN boards, and DSN providers? DDSN boards, and DDSN providers have several different roles as far as the Adult Health Care Consent Act. The first role is that we may be the entity that is actually providing the health care. If we are the entity that is providing the health care, then we have to follow all the rules that are outlined as far as the Adult Health Care Consent Act goes. That means we have to get 2 licensed physicians to certify that this person is indeed unable to consent to whatever the proposed healthcare treatment. Second role we may have in regards to the Adult Health Care Consent Act is when we become the authorized person. Serving as an authorized person as delegated by the state director under statutory authority for those who have been certified by 2 physicians to be unable to consent for specific healthcare treatment. And the third and final role that we would have in regards to the act is when we're in a supportive role, meaning that we are the entity or the provider that may be assisting the consumer. For instance, the best example to give is when someone has been taken to a doctor's appointment, that doctor has determined that they have to give them some type of healthcare treatment that the individual cannot consent to for whatever reason. DSN steps up in a supportive role at that point. If there are individuals who are ahead of us as far as the priority goes, we then help that doctor to figure out who on the priority list would be the most appropriate person to give consent. If it happens to fall and that person they don't have anyone in the priority list as far as number 1 through 8, and they get to number 9, and DDSN is the appropriate person to give consent, then that person must be someone with an intellectual disability as defined by the statute.
Okay.
At the end of the presentation, there are some key definitions as far as what the Adult Health Care Consent Act. Those definitions are listed in the statute and are there on page 9 of the PowerPoint for reference. Commissioner Manfred, I didn't know how do you want to do the next part?
Well, I'm just going to say, does anybody have any questions about what Constance just said? And if not, we're going to move on to the next item, which is to actually approve the healthcare consent, obtaining consent for minors and adults. There's a couple of things about that I want to ask about, but I mean, does anybody have any questions about what Constance just said about basically the overview of what we're doing here today? Hearing none, I'm going to move on to the obtaining consent for minors and adults. And I just wanted to ask, by the way, I wanted to say, first thing I want to say is this is a much better situation than the one we were in before we worked on this policy. This is it's much more logical and much better to me. I guess I need to give Constance credit or whoever for making this thing much better, but based on than what it was a year ago or 6 months ago or whatever. Actually, I think January of last year, but there's only a couple things about this particular act that I wanted to ask about. One was where it talks about living wills. I would just, there is a particular living, it is a Tennessee has the best living will of any one, according to a book I've read on this subject, in America. And I just would like for us to add in that, under that living will section, that for further information, you might want to look up and put the Tennessee Healthcare Directive down there, because they've done a lot of good work with this, and it's a very detailed document about living wills and what they and what they should say or could say. And it doesn't matter what state you live in, you can still use any information from their living will, or you can use their living will for that matter. And I just think it needs to be, I would like to see it documented here that's a very good possibility for information for people to use. Either at that point where it says living will in our presentation, or at least at the bottom where it would give you under attachments, one of the two. Does anybody have? And then the only other thing I was going to ask was, is there when somebody is wanting to go through their healthcare directive, do we have a list of who's required from 1 through 8 for every person before we get to number 9 for us? Like, is that part of their file? Do we have that list from each person that we serve?
We currently don't have it, but that's part of the proposed changes for the new directive, that we will have that list. The list will be reflected, if you look at attachment B of the directive, the list of, as far as priority, will be reflected in that attachment.
Okay. The only other thing I was going to ask about this was, and I'll make a motion for all of it at one time, but the only other thing I was going to ask about was, and ask if anybody else has any questions, of course. But the only thing I was going to ask is, it says that if we do end up at number 9, which I think is extraordinarily unlikely, but if we do end up at number 9 and we are the person that is designated here, should we say it's the executive director of the boards? Or should we say I guess that's what we want to say is executive directors, because I would think there'd be somebody maybe more qualified to make this decision than the executive director of a board. But y'all, so are we we really think that the executive director is the way to go?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so Commissioner Mathers, on page 4 of the directive, it talks about who, state director of BDSN can designate the following individuals. So right now we have that, if you look at section 2 on page 4, we have that the following individuals can act on behalf of the state director. First, we have the DSN Regional Center Facility Administrator. Then we have the executive directors of the DSN boards. And then finally, the executive director, chief executive officer of DDSN contracted service providers.
Okay, all right, I see what you're saying. Okay, I don't, other than making a motion then to add that requirement from, that information from Tennessee, I guess I'll say to add it under living will. I don't have any other, does anybody else have any other corrections or additions to this document before I ask for a motion?
No.
Okay, I haven't heard anything from Stephanie either, so I guess that's all.
Barry, this is
what?
Mary. Do you think we can add that at the end, say additional resources, and maybe put a couple of other things in there, like Tennessee Living Will, or you want it in the body of our directive?
And if I may interject, I think it's probably most appropriate in the attachment that we're going to give to the families on page 1.
Yeah.
If you look at where we have, if you need more information, I think we can add Tennessee as another bullet to say that this is where you go to get more information.
This is a good example of,
yeah.
yeah.
That's on page 1?
If you look at page 1 of the attachment, not the directive, the attachment that's titled "Your Right to Make Decisions About Your Healthcare."
Oh, yeah.
It gives you contact information if you need more information in regards to Living Wills or healthcare.
You can also put it there too. Yeah, that's fine. We can just put it there, it's fine.
So we're going to put it in attachment A in that section and not under the living will section of the directive. We've got it.
Put it under attachment A, yeah. And put it on at the bottom of the directive well, we already have attachment A, I guess, so we just put it, it'll just be part of that.
Yes.
Yeah, it'll be part of attachment A, right?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Okay. Does you might want to make a motion that we do that, make that a part of attachment A.
Sure, I'll move that.
So move, Mr. Chairman.
Motion is made. Is there a second? Barry will second. Motion is made and seconded by Barry. Hearing no discussion, those in favor? Those opposed? Motion carries. Okay, that's our first, that's the first item on the agenda for the consent of minors and adults. The next item on the agenda relates to obtaining healthcare consent for minors and adults under head and spinal cord injuries. And so we just wanted to see if there was any changes anybody wanted to make to that one.
Commissioner Melfres, could I please add, our recommendation is to mark this directive obsolete because as the revision of the prior directive you just approved was done, we incorporated any necessary information. So there's really no purpose for this directive at this point.
Mr. Chairman, I move we mark this policy obsolete.
Okay. There's another one. While we're marking obsolete, I was thinking that was the next one, but while we're marking obsolete, we can mark another one is the authorization to discuss medical condition and medical treatment plan. That's another one that's been asked to be marked as obsolete, so we can do them both at the same time if y'all want to.
We have one more as well.
And I think we have one more, which is the advanced directives. All three of those are being asked to be marked obsolete because it's encompassed in this directive that we've just. It's correct that all this is encompassed in the directive we just approved?
Yes, any necessary information to continue with was incorporated in 53507, which you just.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I'll edit my motion to say to include all three of those policies be marked obsolete.
Is there a second? Barry will second. If there's no further discussion, those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. All right, those are obsolete. I have no problem with any of those. I read those. It seems very thankful that we got all this done with one policy.
Commissioner Melfres, I'll just add, if you don't mind, the procedure now will be that the 53507, the directive that was not marked obsolete in that set, will be posted for 10 business days external review, and then it'll come back to the January policy committee agenda so you can see any comments received and incorporate any additional changes.
Okay. Okay, moving forward. The next item on the agenda is let me see. Mercy. The next item on the agenda is referring to the other committee. or am I confused here? I'm sorry, I'm trying to I'm trying to keep all my stuff together here, and I'm mixed up.
You're right. You're going to section 2 to refer to another committee. We believe that this set of 4 directives are financially related and therefore would be more appropriate to be reviewed for possible revision by the Finance and Audit Committee. And that is 200-01, the personal funds maintained at the residential level. 200-09, fees for residential services provided by DDSN. 200-12, management of funds for individuals participating in community residential programs. And lastly, 250-09, which is calculation of room and board for non-intermediate care facilities programs.
Okay. I am prepared to move those to the Finance Committee after speaking to the Chairman of the Finance Committee. So is there a motion to move all 4 of those to the Finance Committee?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Is there a second?
That's it. Second.
Motion made and seconded. Hearing no further discussion, those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. The next item on the agenda is a referred to staff for section 3, but there's something I want to say about that before we refer it to staff. It relates to the regional centers, what we use for the facilities for outside groups and off-duty employees and that sort of thing. I gotta find what I was gonna ask y'all about very quickly here. Which relates to the order in which these people were priority they were given. I'm not sure why. Let me ask y'all this. Susan, are we planning on giving that a priority if we refer this to staff? Are we planning on leaving those priorities in there as to who has priority over the facility over another?
I'd be glad to ask staff to give particular attention to whether that was necessary or not. Staff have not reviewed this for possible revisions at this point, but we can certainly consider that.
Okay, well, I just think they need to consider whether that's necessary or not, because I don't think it would be. And then, but I got to get to that policy because there's something else on it.
Right, there's use priorities on page 2 in the list: first priority, second priority, and third priority. I think.
Yeah, no, there was that, and there was something else about this particular. Oh, here it is. I'm sorry, I got it now. There might have been something else. It might not have been.
Was it regarding the pools?
No.
Well, it was regarding. Yeah, it was regarding the pools and the. Well, no, it actually wasn't regarding the pools, but it was. I thought. But the other thing I had was that we needed to add where it says specific restrictions. We need to add. I think it would be prudent to add. Should we say something like restrictions on like the kind of the number of people in the gathering or that kind of thing, or what kind of gathering they can have? I mean, because it could be anything.
I think it needs to go with the approval of someone.
Well, I'm sure it will be approval of somebody, but we haven't. Y'all haven't decided. You haven't decided who that's going to be yet, have you, Susan? Who y'all going to ask that to be? Who would give approval for this?
Facility administrator, it looks like.
Right, is this, maybe you should rephrase your question. I'm not sure I understand.
We're trying to figure out who gives authority to do this and what their I mean, obviously they need to not do any illegal activity, but I mean, I would think it would need to address a little more what activities they can do, as opposed to just making it so open-ended.
Right.
I just
It
think they
doesn't-
need to consider that kind of thing when I was reading through this.
Like the purpose.
I mean, it can still be referred to staff, but I just think it needs to be
Okay.
really looked into. And the last thing I was going to ask was, did they need to be able to build fires? I mean, I don't know I think that probably should say that they were prohibited from building fires because of possible. I know it says that only certain employees can do that, but I'm not saying we need to vote on that right now, but I'm just saying we need to consider taking that out where they can't have fires at all.
It reads to me like if there's a designated area, like a outdoor fire pit or something like that. I'm not aware if those things actually exist, but it would be only as a designated area. I'll take a note on all these items and review it with the document manager for this and ask them to give specific consideration, and they can also listen to the meeting discussion from today.
Okay, that's fine. That would be good. And because I see the facility application and all that sort of thing. Okay. Well, then with that being said, then there needs to be a motion to staff to finish this document. To refer this to staff, and then it'll come. Will this be a public commented document too?
Yes.
I don't know why.
The procedure requires that the directives go for 10 business days external review.
Okay, well, after that external review, then it needs to come back. Then I guess it would come back to us along with the other one, right?
So typically, according to the procedure, it would go to the commission next because you're referring it to staff. If your committee would like to make special instructions due to topic matter for it to come back to committee, we can certainly do that. We've done that recently with another directive. If you'd like to see it again, you could do that, or you could keep it in committee and let us go ahead and do revisions and put it out for external review and bring it back. It's really up to you.
I don't know that it's necessary to bring this back to us. I think we just bring it straight. Does anybody else think it's necessary to bring this back to us? I think we can just bring it straight to the commission after they get finished. David, do you have any comments on that? Or Stephanie?
No.
Okay. Okay, we'll just bring it. You can just bring it before the commission whenever you get it finished.
Yeah, I just don't want it to go out to public review before we see it completed. Do you understand what I'm saying?
You mean before the well, you want to bring it back to the policy committee?
I want to see either us or the whole committee see it before it goes out to the public for comment, because I want to see what we're sending out for public comment.
Well, this is what we're sending out to public comment, because they're saying we have to send this out to public comment, or for whatever reason we need to send this out to public comment. I'm not sure why, but for whatever reason we need to send this out to public comment. So this is what the public comment is going to see, what you see right now, except for the revision I just made.
So,
I mean, except for the recommendation that I just made, which they're going to take under advisement whenever they are looking at this document.
Okay, I just want to make sure that those things we talked about are in what they put out for public comment.
Okay, well, then just be. Can I just look at it with Susan and see it and then approve it for public comment?
I agree with that. That'll be fine.
Thank you. All right, that's what Susan. You got that now?
yes, so what I'm understanding is that you all are motioning to refer this to staff for review and revision, And that before it would be posted for external review, we'll confer with the committee chair to make sure it covers all the necessary areas.
Yes, please.
That's right. And I'll check with you. I'll check with you, Stephanie, if I have any question about what we talked about here today.
Okay.
Because I said what I don't know if I made a note of what you said. What did you say anything other than what I said?
No, it just worried me a little bit about who is approving this. I just wasn't finding in there who, obviously it would have to be the facility director, but there's nothing in there that says how long they have to review it. There's nothing in there that says, it doesn't give any specifics as to liability insurance. How much, does it say how much liability anywhere that they're required to carry? I mean, if we're bringing people onto the property, we need to make sure we're covered liability-wise. I mean, especially with a swimming pool. I mean, I don't know that do we have any pools?
We have one. One.
Yeah, I mean, we need to make sure if they're having an event there, liability-wise, we're covered for pool. Because that's a little bit more expensive than just regular liability insurance, from what I can understand.
So just to answer a couple questions, on page 1, it says, you're right, it doesn't say specific timelines and such, but it does say facility administrators are delegated authority to approve the applications.
Okay.
And then it does specifically say on page 3, under 5, liability insurance, groups using swimming pools, gymnasiums,
Yes.
and other department, it must carry or show evidence of adequate liability coverage. It doesn't define what adequate is when I go back to the form, but I can bring those to attention and we can certainly consult
Yes.
about that. Let me just go over, if you don't mind, the notes I have to make sure I've heard everyone.
Okay.
Under this section under policy talking about approval of applications, there was a concern that maybe the purpose of the activity should be included, the kinds of events that would be approved, something in there to clarify. My pleasure. Oh, I don't know why my phone's talking. My wife is talking. I'm so sorry. But it's his pleasure. Consider deleting the priority list that's on page 2. Consider adding an amount required for liability assurance if that's possible. Given parameters, I don't know how to calculate that, but I know we know people who could advise us. And then
I also want to make sure that in that liability insurance portion, that an actual proof of insurance is provided with the application, because a lot of people will say, oh yeah, I'll get the liability insurance, and they never do. We need to make sure that that is attached.
okay, yep.
Must be attached before approval is granted.
Right now it looks like it's just and they have to say that they've done these things. Okay,
That's correct.
I had that, and then I had considered taking out fires being allowed to be built in authorized locations and under direct supervision of a departmental employee during the time of its use.
Yeah, I don't think we need fire.
Yes.
That's all I have.
That's all I have. I just made some quick notes of that too, so I'll double check it with Susan before we put it out.
I'll also ask for future conversation too. How often are the facilities used by outside groups? I'm just not aware, except for like the parent organization. They have events, and so those are usually, very.
I wondered if the fires mean barbecue, so we could be very specific.
Yeah. So that'll be part of the review process, but as I said, I think you're motioning to put this for staff for review with these notes for consideration, and that we'll bring it back to Commissioner Melfors just to kind of provide another set of checks and balances before we post it for external review.
I think that would be great.
Right, that works. You want to make we kind of made it.
That is the motion.
Yeah, that is motion. Is there? I'll make it a second. Is there? Hearing no further discussion, is there? Those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed, motion carries. By the way, there is a, before I get into the last thing, there is a provision in the updated bylaws for Robert's Rules of Order. And I think it was also in the one that was updated 10 years ago, but I know it's in the new one, that, that when we're in an effort this small, I may start, at the next meeting, I may start saying, if there's no objection, we're going to approve this document, so that we don't have to say motion and second and all that sort of thing. It says if you're less than 7 people, you can do that, and we only have 3 here, so it might be easier if I just say if there's no objection, if I hear no objection, this is going to be approved, so we don't have to go through this motion and second so much. But it's an interesting thing that I never saw in the updated version 10 years ago, but I saw it in this one. It was just they had a new version come out, by the way, for those that are interested, in September of this year, and it's definitely in there. But I'll read that more and have that for next meeting. But I just think it'd make it easier than the way we do some of this stuff now, because we only have 3 people on this committee. So, but anyway, I'll talk about that a little more, and if anybody has an objection, we won't use it. The next and final item on the agenda, I think, is, sorry, I was making notes on the back of my thing here. Duty privacy. My Lord, I've lost my place here. Sorry.
I'll
What's
help
the
you out there. I'll help you out if you don't
next item on
mind.
the agenda?
Yep, and we're in old business now, which is review.
Oh, I'm sorry. I see it. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Repenting and responding. I'm sorry, y'all. I've got my notes messed up here today. I promise I'll try to do better next time. I don't know why I'm having such an off day today. But the next item is under old business is approving. I mean, is presenting and responding to disruptive behavior in crisis situations, and it's page 94 to 96 on your packets, and it's the one that relates to the public comment that we have. I'm sure everybody knows we've discussed this before about, and you'll notice on page 2 it says that that we cannot cut off air and any of that sort of thing that we've discussed before. It says that on page 2. It leaves the same thing that we had in there on page 2 before, and then it talks about the techniques that can be used, and it even says that in the event of a person's behavioral support plan and crisis techniques within are unable to be managed safely, that the person can call 911, which is another thing we brought up at the last time we looked at this document. And then it lists the approved criteria for behavioral difficulties and how to handle those behavioral difficulties. Under the public comment, it says that that they would prefer we not. It does say they prefer we not list these approved criteria because it may take a long time for us to approve another one. But I just wanted everybody that's listening to understand that it would not take a long time to approve another one, because if we end up with an 8th or 9th or 10th criteria that's approved, we can approve it at the next policy committee meeting and insert it into this document. So there'd be no reason to wait 2 years or any of that kind of stuff to have something approved. And I just feel like it should be listed in this document in order to not only say what you can't do, but what you can do, just so you can look at one document and tell.
Mr. Chairman, I am in agreement with you there. And one thing, as I read that same sentence, I'd like to also add that, you know, our procedure needs to be that anytime a new curriculum is recommended to staff, that they bring it to the policy committee at the next meeting, so that we know it's being studied or whatever, and that way we can address that information immediately, rather than it being 2 years down the road and nothing have been done regarding it.
I agree wholeheartedly, and I think that I just think that those listening need to realize that we're going to be on top of making sure that these things are approved whenever the staff approves them, and that we will insert it into the document so that it can be approved whenever it's necessary, and or so that we can decide that we are considering approving something else.
Mr. Chairman, I would also recommend that those providers let us know as directors if a new something comes out that they're not seeing that we've added to this policy that needs to be added, or any policy for that matter. You know, the 7 of us are very accessible by telephone, by text, or email. And if you are out there and you have something that you think would work for us, we want to know about it, and we will address these policies immediately should we see something like that needs to be added or taken out of a policy. It doesn't have to be on the agenda. We can bring it up in new business.
Well, that's true. And also, for the record, if we need to approve it fast, we don't have to put it out for public comment again. So it says in our policy that specifically if there's an emergency situation where it's very time sensitive, that we can just approve it. So keep in mind the public comment is just for courtesy, and we can approve something if we need to much quicker than putting it out for public comment and all that sort of thing. So I just think we should list all 7 of them, and if there's another one, because can somebody at Susan or Mary want to help me? How often would one of these be approved? It wouldn't be more than once a year, would it?
So in talking with the folks that are familiar with all of these programs, they tell us that there are really not a lot of other ones out there that could be approved. There are some kind of superficial types of programs that pop up periodically, and providers sometimes are interested in those, but upon our review of them, they would not be appropriate. So we might get some pop-ups like that, but really, in the years that I've been at GDSN, which is since 2013, we've only added 1 or 2.
Yeah.
So it's really infrequent. And as I said, I think this list is pretty exhaustive at this point.
Yeah, I imagine it is. It appears to me that way, because they're actually policies within themselves, aren't they?
Yeah, it's a very specific industry, so it doesn't have a lot of variety out there. Even in these policies themselves, there's very much similarities.
They all have the same.
Yes, there's a lot of overlap. They're not unique.
Okay. Okay, well that's pretty much that. I don't really have anything to add, any other thing to add, except I just wanted to make the comment on the public comment, but I don't want to change anything on the public comment. So I don't think there's a motion to change anything. I don't think there's a motion to change anything that's on this document right now, unless somebody has something. So I would move that we approve this document as it's written. I'd ask somebody to make a motion that we approve this document as written.
Mr. Chairman, I so move. This is Rawlinson.
Motion is made. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion is made and seconded. Hearing no further discussion, those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Okay, that 56704 DD is approved as written. And that is the public comment, so that'll go to the commission, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and then the next item on the agenda is to I will call on Susan to update the policy committee on the process of the directives that we've referred to date.
Sure. So I was just going to provide a very, very brief list of the documents that you'll see for approval on the commission agenda on November 19th. That's right around the corner. And just a reminder, as documents are referred to staff, we are following the written procedure of the policy committee, whether those go to external review and then commission, or if they come back to committee. So we're trying to do that. And we have a pretty thorough process we put in place to make sure that the reviews stay on track. Roughly, if there were no other work to do, it takes about a tight timeline is about 40 business days for us to get through the various approvals and reviews for something. So if it seems like it takes a little bit of time, sometimes it just really is the way to be thorough to do it. So we appreciate you working with us on that process. The external review period ends for the following directives on November 13th. And so we will incorporate any public comments. We have received none to date. And then bring them to the commission for approval. They are the Information Security and Privacy Directive 36732. That's incorporating the 13 information security directives into one. And so we felt like that was a good move forward. So that you'll see that on the commission agenda. You'll also see 60404, which is standard first aid with CPR, cardiopulmonary resuscitation. Acquiring information technology products and services, that's 36702. And then, of course, the one you just approved moments ago, 56704, the DDSN approved crisis prevention curricula list and curriculum approval process. So we will have a little bit of a lengthy policy committee report in the commission meeting, but that's good because that shows we're making lots of progress.
Yes.
Yes.
And I like progress.
And we're making great progress on our goal of reviewing 45 documents for the year. I think, according to my count, we've already reviewed 18. Some of those were not on our plan. We've just inserted extras, but we should be able to accomplish that. And Commissioner Malford and I plan to do some planning in December to make sure that we know what we're going to do the second half of the year. That's my report.
Okay, let me say a couple of things before we adjourn then, or before I make a motion to adjourn if I can. One is that the first and primary one is that we would like I would ask that y'all would update the deleted policy sheet that we have so that we can have that
Yes.
for after this meeting's over, because we just deleted several of the policies. So if we could update that, it would be nice. So that we can have those listed down there. And then the other thing is that I wanted to mention just as a caveat is to public comment in general, is that we are thankful for the public comment that we receive, but that we would ask that the public comment would be have some thought to it, and basically if you need any clarification, we're happy to give it when it comes to public comment, which is one of the greatest things about public comment. I think if somebody needs clarification of some kind, but we really don't, and I bring this up with all due respect, we really don't need people to tell us what grammatical errors there are in any of the policies, because before they get finished, Susan and her staff are quite capable of fixing those. So if there's substantive changes somebody wants to make or would like to see made, we'll consider them. But please stop with please don't give us the grammatical errors. That's not necessary. If there is a grammatical error, it's our fault, and we don't, so we will make it good at another point, but there's no reason to point it out to us. Okay, and then the next item on the agenda before I adjourn is to say that or ask for a movement to adjourn is to say that we do not have a meeting in December. We're going to take Christmas off and let the staff catch up to us, and our December off and let the staff catch up to us, and we'll be prepared for a robust agenda starting and a list for what we're going to try to approve starting in January through June. And we hope to be on a record pace for 1 year of the policy committee. I think we will be. If we can finish what we're planning to do, I think we'll probably be a record compared to what we've ever done before. Is that correct, Susan?
Yes, I think so. Definitely policy committee.
I think he's already broken the
I
record.
think you've got, yeah.
I think you've already got the record.
Oh, okay.
Frankly.
It's probably an overachiever, but you will probably outbest yourself on this.
Thank you very much. Okay. Is there does anybody have anything else? Anybody on the committee have anything else, or Mary have anything else come before the policy committee today?
No, I think I'm good.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear her. Is there
I'm
anything?
sorry, I don't have anything.
Nothing more.
Okay. All right. Nothing else come before the policy committee. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Okay, we have a motion to adjourn. We don't really need a second, but I'll second it, and we're adjourned.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am, and thank you,